Agent Simmons, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm the evidence you're about to present in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and have a seat. Make yourself comfortable. If you would, state your full name for the record.
Robert Simmons, go by Bobby.
And who do you work for?
The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
We just call that TBI?
Yes, sir.
If you would, just tell the jury, what is the TBI and how's it in comparison to our GBI here in Georgia?
It's basically the same thing as GBI. We investigate special circumstance cases that were requested by district attorneys throughout Tennessee. My unit is in Middle Tennessee. We handle everything from homicides to thefts to officer-involved shootings, just a wide variety of stuff.
Where did you start in law enforcement?
Metro National Police Department.
What did you do there?
I was a patrol officer for 2 years. Then I went to a proactive unit, and then I was a detective the last 2 years I was there.
What type of proactive unit was it? Crime suppression or something? Or?
Basically, we called it a flex unit. We were unmarked cars, but just doing proactive stuff in high crime areas.
All right. And after you were there, what'd you do?
So when I left Metro, I started at TBI.
You were a detective before you left?
Yes, sir, I was.
What kind of cases did you investigate?
Mostly property crimes. We did do some homicides, but kind of a wide variety. We were kind of regional. We had a precinct. We covered a certain area of Nashville. But we kind of covered all the crimes in that area.
Now, were you, we call it post-certified, which y'all call in Tennessee.
Yes, post-certified.
Were you post-certified with the state level, or is it just a state accreditation for everybody?
Correct.
And when you go to the GBI, do you have to go back to a new academy?
Through TBI, yes, sir. We go through
TBI.
Yes,
sorry.
sir. We are. They host their own special agent academy.
How long was that?
I believe it was 18 weeks.
After you got out of the academy for the TBI, what'd you do?
In the position I'm in now, so CID in Middle Tennessee. I've been in that position the whole time.
Now, in Georgia, the GBI investigates, they're assigned to regions, and they may have so many counties in their region. Is yours similar to that?
Yes, sir. We're assigned to the 4 grand districts of the state. So I'm in Middle Tennessee. Within that, I'm assigned to the 16th Judicial District, which is Rutherford and Cannon County. I cover those 2 counties.
What are those counties like? Are they big, small?
They're actually both the opposite. Rutherford County is Murfreesboro, where Middle Tennessee State University is. It's a very large city, large departments, police departments. Cannon County is the complete opposite. Population is about 15,000, and they have 2 detectives for the whole county.
And how long have you been doing this type of work?
I've been there. I've been at TBI since 2016.
Do you have any specializations, or y'all just catch whatever cases come?
We catch them all, yes, sir.
Do you do crime scene and things like that, or are you mainly on the investigative side?
We do. We process our own scenes mostly.
You do too?
Yes, sir.
And oftentimes, do you work with sister agencies from other states?
Yes, sir, we do.
Now, in this case, did you get called upon, or someone get a hold of you from the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office ask you to help out?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Just kind of tell the jury how that works. What happened there?
So we got a call from Cherokee County just saying that they had an individual in Middle Tennessee that they had identified and were trying to locate and interview, and they were asking us to go, given that it's a few hours away from where they were at, if we could go and try to locate that person and interview him.
And I think you went, let's begin with the timeline here, July 6th of 2018, I think you went and talked to first as a Martha Jane Barton.
Yes, sir.
And I believe she was related to, by marriage, stepmother to Rusty Barton, is that right?
That's correct, I believe.
So you went and talked to Martha Jane on July 6th that evening. Was it a long conversation or kind of just an introductory conversation?
I think it's pretty short. We didn't gain a whole lot of information.
What's Martha Jane like?
She was a little standoffish, but it wasn't. I don't think it was necessarily a terrible interaction.
Was she older?
Yes, she is.
And where was this at? What city was it?
I believe it was in Coffee County. I believe Tullahoma.
Tullahoma. I think Rusty's Tullahoma too.
Yes.
What is that like?
It's a little bit smaller than say the Murfreesboro where I'm from. It's not I wouldn't call it a podunk county, but it's fairly
rural, farms, things
rural.
like that.
Yes.
What kind of cotton fields, tobacco fields? What's the produce there?
Mostly down there is corn and soybeans, Middle Tennessee.
But rural area.
Yes, sir.
And but was Martha Jane, was she pleasant, nice?
Yeah, no issues with the interview.
A little reluctant to talk with you?
Yes, sir.
And did she really give you anything that was significant that you went, hey, here's some great information and just solve the case for us?
No, sir.
After you talked to Martha Jane, did you go and talk to Rusty Barton?
Yes, sir, we did.
And I think that conversation was about, give or take, 45 minutes, probably around 8 or 9 o'clock at night.
I believe that's right, yes, sir.
And when you talked to Rusty, where did you go to talk to him?
I went to his house.
And did you have anybody with you?
Yes, Agent Elizabeth Williams, another TBI agent.
Now, this Tullahoma where Rusty was at, was this your area that you were assigned to, or was this outside your area?
That's Agent Williams' assigned area.
And how many TBI agents do y'all have per area, I guess?
Generally one.
How many cases do you have to work a year?
We generally may get 10 to 15 cases a year, and we maintain our cases through adjudication, so we're constantly carrying 10 to 15 cases at all times.
Is the TBI like the GBI that you basically have to get called in for assistance from a local agency?
Correct. Well, the way TBI, the statute reads for Tennessee, is the district attorney's office has to request the TBI investigate the matter.
It's the head prosecutor requests.
Correct, yes.
Now, in this, since you're helping out, how much did you really know about what had happened in Cherokee County?
Very little.
Did you have great detail, or just basically the information that Gary was found on a burn pile?
Yes, and we were provided their information basically to go find them and just see what they know kind of deal.
So just kind of preliminary just to start the investigation?
Yes, sir.
And did y'all have a lot of time to prepare, or did y'all just hit the road and try to get out there and talk to people?
We went pretty quick and tried to find them.
Now, when you tell the jury, if you would, how would you describe Rusty Barton?
He was a little arrogant at first. I remember when we first got there and we explained who we were and what we were doing. He made the comment, "Well, do you know who I am?" or something along those lines. And yes, sir, we do. Yeah, we know your birthday. We know who you are. We're here knowing we're talking to you. He was a little reluctant again to provide information. We kind of just had to tell him a little bit about what we did know, but to kind of peel the layers back and get to the bottom of it.
Kind of pulling strings to get some information?
Yes, sir.
Now, in the beginning, I guess there was an issue about who Roy Barton was, and junior and senior.
Yes, there was conversation about that.
So Martha Jane's husband, Roy, who had passed away, that was Rusty's father, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Now, when we start talking to Rusty, does he give, is it a voluntary talk?
Yes, sir. He invited us into his home. Yes, sir.
So he didn't put handcuffs on or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely not. No, sir.
Have you played good cop or bad cop when you've done interviews, interrogation?
We do, and depending on, I've done several interviews with Agent Williams and with other ones, and we kind of just feel it out and see who they better connecting with, and sometimes they gravitate towards one agent or the other, so we just kind of play off of that to get that information and talk to them.
To be a detective and also to work for the TBI, do you go through interviews and interrogation training?
Yes, sir.
Is it called interviews and interrogation, or what do y'all call y'all's?
They've done several. We do independent classes. They've done different techniques over the years.
Read method, bait method, things like that?
Yes, sir.
So are you kind of taught how to interview people, even reluctant witnesses?
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
Now, have you ever been in some throwdown interviews with people cussing, screaming, almost going to fisticuffs?
Absolutely.
How many of those do you think you've been in?
Only a handful. Most of the time, I feel pretty confident with talking civilly with people.
You ever have to get in a fist fight or anything, restrain anybody during the interview?
No, not during an interview, no.
What is your style? If you tell the jury, if we could hear a recording of you, what's your style like?
I try to be polite. Yes, sir, no, sir. I try to respect what they're saying, but also make them understand that we know that there's maybe more that they're not telling us. Let them know that. Let them talk. Let them kind of say what they want to say, but then be able to talk them through. Hey, it's okay. We're here for a purpose. We're not here to. Again, we're not at that time. We're not here to arrest you. I've had those interviews where we know we're arresting them. That was not this at all. This was just an informative interview. Get as much information as we could. So.
Now, at this stage, do you even know if Rusty Barton is someone that's a suspect or is knows something or knows nothing?
I think we knew that there was going to be some kind of connection, but we didn't know the full extent of what that was at that point.
Have you even seen the defendant, Melody Farris, in this case?
No, sir.
So you never came this way to Georgia?
No, sir.
You just helped up there, is that right?
That's correct.
All right, so when you first start talking to Rusty, let him know it's just a voluntary interview. Did he could end the interview? Was that made clear to him?
Yes, sir. He knew. Again, he invited us to come sit in his home and talk with him. At no point did he ask us to get up and leave, and we refused to leave. I mean, that wasn't the conversation. So,
what level of sophistication would you say Rusty Barton has?
he's a smart man. He's a businessman. He's not.
He's in sales.
Yes.
Nice guy.
Yes, sir.
Pretty big guy.
He was. Yes, sir.
Not super aggressive or anything like that.
No.
Now, did he like your partner?
There was periods where he didn't like maybe some of the things she was saying, and he again just gravitated more towards having a conversation with me, and that's just part of how. That's why we take multiple people to an interview.
Sure, I mean it's something you do, right? Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, yes, sir.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being where you're in someone's face, screaming, cussing, pointing at them, and everybody's standing up, almost going to blows, and 1 being, hey, we're just kind of having a conversation, kind of like what we're doing. Where would you put this interview with him?
Oh, very low, maybe a 2. I mean, we were definitely saying, we know that there are things you're not, we know that there's more to this than you're saying, and again, we're kind of just pulling the layers back of that onion, and just, we know there's more to it, just getting him to, but it was at no point confrontational, was yelling, screaming, anything like that.
Did you ask him if he knew Melody Farris?
Yes, sir.
Did you go through his, when there's a murder, do you try to get, when you investigate a murder or helping out in a murder, do you try to get a timeline?
Yes, sir, we do. Talk about when they last spoke to somebody, when they saw somebody, when things like that, how they communicate with the person, all those kind of things.
And he's going to be here. I'm going to ask him these questions. But did you try to get a timeline with him for July 3rd, 4th, and 5th? Gary Farris' body was found on the 5th. So did y'all try to go back through things to see where he was at?
I believe we did. I don't know that we knew all the details of the exact times, other than, I mean, it was the next day, so we knew we were talking about the few days leading up to that.
And did you talk to him about, do you remember talking to him about whether or not he gave the defendant a credit card?
Yes, we did talk about that at some point. I believe it was during that first interview, yes, sir.
Do you remember, was Rusty from Tullahoma? Is he from that area?
I believe so. He talked about family connections to the area and that kind of thing.
Did he talk about his grandfather?
Yes, his grandfather used to be the sheriff or the police chief or something along those lines.
So there was a background to the
Yes, sir.
connection to law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you investigate things, crimes and things like that, are you interested in cell phones?
Absolutely.
Are those ubiquitous today? Are they within arm's reach of most people?
Yes, sir.
Now, did you do any drug investigations?
No, I did not.
Do you ever see, how many phones do you have? So,
I have 2, personal phone and work phone.
Did you ask Rusty about phones and how many phones the defendant had?
Yes, we had conversations about that he had a work phone, and then again at some point we talked about that he had to end up getting a personal phone because his work didn't want him to use the work phone for personal business. So he told us he had 2 phones, I believe. Do
you remember asking him about the defendant's phone?
Yeah, we talked about if he had purchased a cell phone for her, a burner phone, prepaid phone, those kind of things.
In your first interview, did he just give you the one phone or one phone number? Do you
I believe that's correct, yes, sir.
And then later on, did you get, maybe through his attorney, did you end up getting another phone number or knowledge of another phone?
Yes, sir.
Was that Bobby Carter?
Yes, sir.
So that would, so on July 6th, it was just one phone, and then
I believe that's correct, yes, sir.
Later on, you learned about another one?
Yes, sir.
The first time you talked to him, did he seem to have a lot of details about what had happened to Gary?
No, he did not.
Did he seem to indicate whether or not he was talking to the defendant a lot?
No, I think he kind of indicated that he had not spoken to her for a while, that I want to say maybe even hadn't seen her for quite some time, but kind of distance, that there was not been recent communication.
First interview, did you get attacked by the cat? I think maybe.
That sounds right. I think so.
His cat got on you or something.
Yeah.
Do you remember leaving that night, and what was it like to leave? Was there any issues or anything like that?
No, it was.
At some point, did he or his attorney reach out and want to talk again?
Yes, so a couple days later, I believe that first interview was on July 6th, and then on July 10th, which would have been the beginning of the next week.
Okay, if you look right there on Raleigh 1, there's a calendar for July 2018.
Yes, so Friday the 6th is when we talked to him initially, and then I believe it would have been Tuesday, July.
I got the 10th, is that
the
right?
10th, yes, sir.
And when you went back on the 10th, tell the jury who was all with you on this time.
So at that point, there was Mr. Barton was there, his attorney Bobby Carter was there, myself, Agent Williams were there, and then there was 2 investigators from Cherokee County there.
The lead detective in the case is Detective Hayes, Daniel Hayes. He's sitting right here. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes, sir.
And probably may have been dressed differently, more casual. I don't remember how you first went out.
Yes,
and then you had Ashley Pope, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember? So Hayes and Pope.
Okay, yes, sir.
For the record, which one was good cop and which one was bad cop?
I don't recall which one. I remember them both being there. One was doing more of the talking. One was dealing more with the cell phones and Cellbrite. I don't recall which was.
How aggressive was that second interview?
Well, I mean, it started with his attorney basically letting us know, hey, he told us, in the initial part of the interview.
That's okay, Judge. I'm going to have him here. He can do it.
Well, I think the issue is whether it's the lawyer talking or the defendant talking, or the witness talking.
It's the lawyer.
Yeah,
Well,
so that's not going on.
I'll rephrase it.
All right.
In the second interview, someone reached out to y'all. Is that right?
I believe that's correct, yes, sir.
And when you got to the second interview, don't tell me what was said, but when you were there, did you get more information during the second interview that you couldn't get during the first interview?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And was that because things had to be explained and clarified?
Yes, sir.
And that was on coming from their side and not y'all's?
Correct, yes.
So it had to set some things straight or change some things?
Yes, sir.
Right. Let's see. During that second interview, y'all talked about phones again, I believe, and deleting some things off the phone.
Yes, sir, we did.
And when it came to Rusty's phone, do you remember you were kind of quiet during the interview? You I could hear you talk, but you're not super aggressive, are you?
No.
I'm sure you can be when you have to, but
right.
If you're reading the room, is that your style? Is kind of how it is?
Yeah, that interview was going very smoothly, so there was no need to agitate the situation by being aggressive with it.
And if you saw, an interview is an interview, right? That's a different tone than
Absolutely.
an interrogation. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
So if I said to you, what is an interview with a suspect? How's that different from what's an interrogation with a suspect or just a witness?
Well, in an interview, we're just having a casual conversation about just kind of what kind of the dialogue back and forth. Interrogation's more of, for me, is me being more forthcoming, that we know more information, we know you're withholding, we know there's certain evidence, whatever it may be, but it's more of us kind of trying to get that person to just either acknowledge or have that conversation with about whatever evidence that we may have. And it can go back and forth. It can be a somewhat of confrontational, and then they may decide to speak, and we go back down to just a casual conversation. And in this setting, it was absolutely that. It was all 6 of us talking, having conversations, and there was no jumping and screaming again. And
Nobody in the interview said we're done, we're not talking anymore, or anything like that?
No, sir.
Now, if I said, is it either the interview or the interrogation where sometimes law enforcement takes the approach of, you're done talking, now I'm going to talk? Which one is more likely to be that?
Right. That's when you kind of get into that interrogation phase. If you're kind of doing most of the talking and trying to get them to get on the same page as you as far as agreeing that there is more information or whatever. But that's more of, for me, is that I talk more during that interrogation part.
Have you ever heard the saying, you catch more flies with honey you do vinegar?
Yes, sir.
Sometimes you got to use vinegar.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever do an interview where you're with a suspect or a witness and they're sitting in a chair and you get close to them, you put your arm around them and tell you everything, kind of comfort them?
Yes, sir.
Do you ever get when you do an interrogation where you have to get up in someone's face a little bit and see if they'll break or give you some more information?
Very little. I take the approach of just being more honest with them, that there's more that we know, and just be kind of frank, but not loud and argumentative or anything like that.
If a witness is reluctant or reticent or not completely giving forthcoming, do you try different things just to see what will happen?
Oh, yes, sir.
Did you feel like that's what was going on with Rusty?
I mean, somewhat. It was more that we, as the investigators, knew more information, and we'd have to kind of feed him. And I'll go back to, let me give kind of an example of that first interview, is when we approached him and we said, hey, this is who we are talking to him. And he asked, do you know who I am? And I'm like, yes, sir. I had to say, I know your birthday. And, oh, okay, yes. So he had to kind of understand that they do know something more, so I need to talk. If I'd have gone in there and he had no idea who if we said, oh, we don't know who you are, we just showed up, and he would have been more reluctant. But as we fed him a little bit of information to say we know, X, Y, and Z, he would kind of, okay, I'll tell you more. It's just, I think it was more of him just being standoffish, of not wanting to let go of that information.
Was it a process to get more information as the interviews went on?
Absolutely.
Now, you asked a question, we're talking about him deleting things off his phone. Do you remember asking him the question about why would you delete things off your phone? Not hers, but yours.
Yes.
And why did you ask that question?
Well, I know that in my experience, people delete things they don't want to be seen. And cell phones, that's a very common thing. Delete text messages, photos, whatever it may be that they delete off their phone. So we wanted to clarify, to see had he deleted items off his phone.
Now, Rusty has some sayings, some unique sayings. Like he said, like heck fire, stuff like that.
Yes.
When y'all first approached him and asked him whether or not he was having a physical or a sexual relationship with the defendant, what was he like there?
Again, very standoffish. Again, that's a statement most people don't want to hear. But once we explained, hey, we do know a little bit more, then he was forthcoming with little bits of information at a time. But at first, no, he didn't like that.
Did he give more and more information about the relationship as time went on during
Yes,
the
sir.
interviews? All right, tell the jury, did you see anybody threaten Rusty?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you see anybody put a hand on him or hurt him or do anything like that?
Absolutely not, no, sir.
And if you were involved in an interview and you saw even another law enforcement officer cross that line, would you do something?
Absolutely.
See anything in this case give you concern?
No, sir.
Nothing further, no. Weaver?
Good afternoon, Mr. Simmons.
Good afternoon.
My name is John Luke Weaver, and I represent Melody Farris.
Yes, sir.
I don't have a lot of questions for you because I know you really didn't have a lot to do with this case. Would that be correct?
That's correct, yes, sir.
So that first interview, you said you showed up, about 8 or 9 o'clock at night on a Friday?
I believe that's correct, yes, sir.
All right. So it's not unusual that if you show up at somebody's house at 8 or 9 o'clock on a Friday night, that you would ask, do you know who I am?
You're saying me ask that?
Well,
the person, yes.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
are you interviewing the right person?
Sure.
I mean, you catch people off guard.
Yes, sir.
So they want to verify who you are.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you mentioned something about deleting cell phones earlier. That's
Deleted data off of a cell phone.
okay, but that were you talking about his phone? Did you do a phone dump on his phone?
During the second interview, yes, they were conducting a Cellbrite extraction.
But did you?
No, we were sitting there, so as they're doing it, I was asking him about the data on his phone.
Okay. But otherwise, you were there for just 2 interviews?
Yes, sir.
All right. Are you aware that Cherokee County came up and interviewed him multiple times after you?
I've heard that, yeah, but we were not a part of that.
But you weren't present for that?
No, sir.
Okay. But, the district attorney was talking to you about how you were behaving, but, overall, Rusty was pretty respectful of you, wasn't he?
Yes, sir, yeah. There was no... again, like you said, somebody shows up at your door asking questions of why are you here, and that's understandable. We explain all that, but no, there was no. He wasn't yelling and screaming at us either. No.
Right, and it's not unusual for a person when you confront them with extramarital relationship to maybe not talk about that right away. Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else?
Nothing further, Judge.
All right, you can sit down. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Agent, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the matter now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a seat. If you could please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Williams.
Can you please tell them where you are employed and how long you've been employed there?
Yes, I am a special agent out of Tennessee with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and I've been there about 8.5 years.
What did you do prior to the TBI?
I was also a special agent with our state's Alcoholic Beverage Commission.
How long were you an agent there?
2 years.
And before that, what did you do?
I was in college, and throughout college I worked as a certified pharmacy technician.
And they just heard from your colleagues, so I won't belabor too much of this, but you're also post-certified there in Tennessee?
I am.
Okay. And what is your region that you are assigned to?
So my colleague is assigned to middle. I'm east. Tennessee has 3 divisions. So east would be like Chattanooga, all the way from the Kentucky border to Chattanooga in Georgia.
Did you go with your colleague with Agent Simmons to interview Martha Barton?
I did.
Okay. And can you tell the jury a little bit about how Miss Barton was towards you all?
I think Miss Barton's interview was the second one that we did that night, and I think it was like a Friday night, maybe even after hours, and our hours end at 4:30. So we're talking probably 5 o'clock and onward, and I think she was the second one that we did. Miss Barton appeared gracious. She welcomed us into her home. She seemed very protective of Melody when we asked questions, Miss Farris. She answered our questions. She also, if I may explain a little further, she also said that she had been instructed to...
Objection, hearsay.
Without going into what she told you at this point, was she a little reluctant to chat with you?
She was, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And moving on from Miss Barton, what information did you have before going to speak with both Martha Barton and Rusty Barton in this case?
I don't think that I received the original call for assistance. I work with the state of Georgia all the time. GBI, Walker County, this being Cherokee County. I'm usually called, but I don't think I was in this case. I think Agent Simmons was. And because Mr. Barton lived in Tullahoma, which is Coffee County, that was my area at the time, the most natural way for me to get involved would have been for Agent Simmons to then call me. We would have linked up and then went to wherever to interview whomever we needed to.
And so you would have gotten your information from Agent Simmons?
Yes.
Is that fair? Okay. So did you have the occasion to go interview Rusty Barton on July 6, 2018?
We did.
But prior to entering into that interview with Mr. Barton, talk to the jury a little bit about your style, how you conduct interviews of this nature.
Each case is different, but I knew going in that this was a homicide case. I can't tell you what information that I knew just in thinking, trying to recall, other than this is a witness, we need to go talk to him. So I didn't perceive him as a subject, but clearly if the state of Georgia needed us to do an interview or Cherokee County needed an interview that night after hours, it was important. And it was important to us because we maintain relationships with all departments, states, whoever calls. So we responded immediately. And the appropriate course of action is, it's non-custodial. We were invited into this person's home. It was his daughter's home. So we were respectful, we were nice. But there is a point where we're wasting our time and whoever we're talking to's time, whoever's requested our time, if we don't get straight to the facts. So this interview will start like all interviews do. We'll build rapport. We'll thank them for letting us come. We're super respectful and polite, but there's a point when we have to ask the tough questions, which is what occurred during this interview as well.
So is it fair to say that Mr. Barton was also reluctant in the beginning to chat with you?
In the beginning, he was nice. I mean, he let us come in. He was confused, or he said he was confused about why we were there. Once the questions became pointed at him, he was very reluctant to answer them, and at one point appeared to be upset that I was asking certain questions.
And when you were invited into his home, did either you or Agent Simmons have your weapons drawn or any handcuffs out or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
And did you promise him anything or threaten him with anything?
No, ma'am.
During that interview, at any point, did you press upon him the importance of what was happening and the seriousness?
Yes, I think so.
During that interview, did you inform him that at some point you're going to go and kind of corroborate, validate, or dispel the information he's providing to you?
Yes, I told him something along the lines of, once we leave this interview here, we have other work to do.
Throughout that interview, when you were asking about Melody Farris, did he sort of distance himself from her?
I can't recall exactly what he said, but I can tell you that he was reluctant to define the relationship. When I asked him something along the lines of being in a romantic relationship with Miss Farris, he did not want to talk about that.
I want to talk about the subsequent interview. So, on the interview on the 6th, how did that interview end?
I'm sorry, how did it what?
How did it end?
He thanked us, we thanked him. I mean, it was non-eventful. He stayed at his house, we left, we went to do the interview with Miss Barton.
And on the 10th, did you have the opportunity to interview Mr. Barton again?
We did.
Who was present for that interview?
That interview was divided into two parts. Agent Simmons and I, again, I don't know who contacted whom. However, we got to the attorney's office in Tullahoma, still in Coffee County. Now, Judge Bobby Carter was the attorney at the time that Mr. Barton had retained or agreed to meet with. It was at his office. And we met there in the afternoon. It was Bobby and I, and then I know Ashley Pope, and then there was another maybe detective from Cherokee County.
Would that be maybe Detective Daniel Hayes?
Maybe.
So during that interview, was that a longer interview than the first one?
I think the first one was about an hour. The first part of the July 10th interview was like an hour. We left. Judge Carter called us back and said, we think you need to come back and hear this. And I think the second part, so 1 and 2, part 2, I think was like 2 hours.
So total about 3. Is that fair?
Yes.
From the 10th? Okay. And during that interview, was his phone also being extracted?
Yes, at some point, I think the second part of the interview.
During that interview with Mr. Barton, did you eventually have to sort of, and I'm going to phrase it as have a come to Jesus moment with him about how you were interpreting his position on the questions at that point?
I didn't say a lot, I don't think, during the first and second interviews, both on the 10th. So we'll say July 6th, and we'll refer to July 10th. July 6th, Agent Simmons and I both had a pretty dominant role because no one from Georgia was there. So whatever information we were going to tell Georgia, we had to get it because there was not a representative there. On the 10th, because there were people, law enforcement personnel from Georgia, we kind of took a back seat. However, the relationship with Mr. Barton and I was already established. We established that on the 6th. He called me pushy. He did not appear to be receptive to my questions. And I think on the 10th, that just kind of flowed right on in to that atmosphere. So there was a point when he looked at me, and I don't even know if I knew he was talking to me at first. And then on playback of the recording, I heard him say something along the lines of, well, you don't believe me, or you don't believe anything that I'm saying. And then I go through this long spiel, and it ends with me saying, well, you're picking up what I'm putting down. I mean, it's obvious, whether it was my body language or the questions that I was asking or the way I responded to his questions and answers. It was obvious that he knew that I knew that I didn't believe everything that he was saying.
And so at that point going forward, did you continue to impress upon him the importance of this investigation?
I'm sure I did.
Give me one moment. Thank you, Agent. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Mr. Weaver?
Good afternoon, Agent Williams. My name is John Luke Weaver, and I represent Melody Farris. Just briefly. So you were there for the first interview on the 6th.
Yes.
And Rusty wasn't really happy with you guys asking about an extramarital affair he was involved in.
Of course not.
Okay,
Right.
that's reasonable. and he wasn't happy about that on the 10th, right?
Yeah, I don't think anybody would be. Yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right, you sit down.
No further questions, Judge. Thank you.
Judge Rusty Barton's next.
Let's go ahead and take a break.